But how do you teach the conversations that are negative, the arguments, the disagreements? Because that's a unique way of conversing, chatting, talking as well, right?
Absolutely. I feel everybody deserves the right to self-express, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with what we say. And you mentioned this too. You can sort of control what you deliver as a message, but you can't control how others feel or how they may understand it. So the key to bridging that gap is being curious. And the book starts out that way. When you aren't sure or you want to know more information, or even if somebody says something that you don't agree with, ask questions. How did you come to that idea? What made you think that way? Tell me more about that process. You're showing interest, and you're also getting to the bedrock of how that person understands something. Now, I might learn something in doing that. I hope I do. But also it becomes a conversation, and the interest, the person understands you're not going to challenge them on that idea necessarily. You're going to have a conversation and share new ideas. And if a challenge comes up, it's from a very different perspective of a healthy debate versus a tense kind of debate. There's many times where a lot of leaders have to lay people off or deliver some bad news. You can acknowledge them by something good they've done, but you've got to be honest. Look, this is not going to be easy. I've got some bad news to deliver. But when you get right to it quickly, they appreciate it, or they're not sitting there building up some kind of anxiety, making it worse because you're beating around the bush, spending 20 minutes explaining why things are not going way. Get right to it and then have the conversation. Let me explain why. But always be curious. That's another thing I talk about in the book. It's not necessarily about what we say all the time. It's not always about my words. Sometimes the best speakers listen. Sometimes they ask questions to learn about the other person's point of view. Again, every interaction, think of it as a conversation. What information can I learn? What can I know? What can I share? And that's very different than talking at people. That's very different than, overwhelming somebody with a really long story. It's being curious and interested, and that'll help too.
Yeah. Well, I've got above me here, Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. Yeah. I love it. I had to grab and put it up there because it's huge in any aspect of your life. I'm a podcast host, TV show host, you're a coach. We always have to be curious. That's how we bring value to people. Go ahead.
So that goes to the quote, right? Curiosity killed the cat. But the second part of that is satisfaction brought the cat back. Back to what you were saying earlier. The fact that the cat actually was curious and took that risk paid off. Because they grew from it personally, and either they got what they needed or they learned, at least they were able to have the gumption to try, to go out there and challenge themselves. There's a win-win.
Yeah, across the board. Definitely a win-win. Well, so I talked to introverts, a few of them just this past month. How does this work for an introvert? Because they're all like, I can't do a podcast. I can't do the sales call. I can't because they're afraid to speak. What do you tell them?
There is a segment in the book on labels.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're not important. There are things where we have clinical diagnoses, but if we stand behind extrovert, introvert, and any other label we're thrown at, I'm asking you to ask yourself the question, is that a roadblock? Now, let me go back to myself. I am a social butterfly. People say I'm an extrovert. I love a party. So what happened when I got up on that stage and I couldn't speak? I was so tongue-tied. I was so frozen when I had to present. My mind went blank and nothing came out of my mouth. Miss Social Butterfly, Miss Loves a Party, couldn't speak. So I thought about that label. Are the labels holding us back? Is that fear, the idea, I'm fearful, I'm scared of what's in front of me, I'm an introvert, is that holding me back? Maybe. And maybe there's a way to work through that. And in the book, I help you understand that sometimes what's going on inside our heads, our own inner dialogue, is most likely not what's happening in the outside world.
Yeah, our mind lies to us all the time. 95% of the time, it's lying to us, and we got to fight through that. So I want you to tell the story, because that leads to the story I read this morning, so it's very fresh. The wedding story, when that friend of yours, that's a perfect time. You're a professional speaker, and I'm reading this story, and I want you to tell it. Tell the story. I'm not going to ruin it. Go tell the story. It's a great story.
It's fun. And I just had dinner with the couple last week, as a matter of fact. We were laughing about the story. We still do. I went to a friend's wedding. It was great. And of course, there's the time when people have to give a toast. And the first name they call is Shelley Goldstein to come up and give a toast. I literally was like a deer in headlights. I was caught so off guard. I was so panicked. I was like, wait a minute, what am I going to say? Wait, what's happening? I barely knew the groom. I had met him maybe a couple of times, but I really didn't know him. And of course, the bride was my dear friend. I'd known her for years, but what was I going to say that mattered to this group? So I get up, the room's clapping and cheering me on. I walk to the front. I'm telling you, my knees were knocking, my hands, palms were sweating. I was shaking and doing everything I could on that walk, which felt like 1.5 miles across a room. I was like, do some breathing. You can do this. Calm yourself down. And I got there and I thought of a moment where how I met the groom for the first time, which was through a phone call where I called him out of the blue to, connect me or refer me to some job interview that I had, and he happened to have a contact there. So it was kind of like off the cuff, and I even made a joke that here I am, a professional speaker, and what am I going to say? But once I went into the story and the moment, it flowed very naturally. Everybody was very happy. The couple was like smiling on in admiration, and I was walking back to the table. People were cheering me on. What a great speech. That's a great, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. So I guess I pulled it off.
You pulled it off. You were, yeah.
It was
and that was magic. One more time. Magic. Story, and listening you tell the story, which is different than in the book, you hear it differently. So the question is, what is one takeaway you hope readers gain from your book? Similar to what you just said, but takeaway might be a little different thought.
Speaking is something you do every day. And you started to talk about this in the beginning, Steve, but if you look at every interaction, every speaking opportunity, and I mean sending an email, I mean speaking to a friend over coffee, maybe it's just a work meeting or simply a lunch with a business associate. All those are speaking opportunities and they're conversations. And when we approach every talk, from that to being on a stage, to presenting to the board of directors, to being in front of a live audience, when we look at it as a conversation, it de-escalates the tension. You realize you're just sharing information.
What I loved about it is the workbook. Book with the workbook, and you tie in your website to that. Talk about how you do that with the book.
So back to the fact that when you read the book, I wanted to feel like you were being coached. When I coach my clients for real, that's exactly what I do. We have worksheets, there's drills and exercises for immediate takeaways, immediate experiential scenarios. So it's not like read it now and maybe next week you can talk about it. No, I want you to read the chapter, do the exercise, put the book down, and go out and actually put it into practice right away, because you can in real life. Like I mentioned, you're going out with a friend for drinks. You're speaking to a barista at a coffee shop. You have to talk to the board of directors. Yes, take it right into that. And the best way to do that, to take it into real life, is to have the workbook, give you something tangible to do. And not only is that interactive, but this is how you build and rewire your neural pathways to learn new behaviors. That's how it works. So the more you do that in the book, the more I walk you through that, that is an integral part of you not only learning this, but developing a new behavior. So You feel comfortable, you feel confident all the time when you're speaking. You know how to manage those nerves.
The workshop, the framework in the book, if people grab the book and practice it, don't just read it once or just do the workshop once. Practice it. Like when I go to the gym later this afternoon, I'm lifting weights. It's the same thing with your speaking. That's why you could jump up there last minute and go, oh, and work right through it, right? So talk about the practice of this.
So the practice isn't intended to be, the last thing I wanted to do was say, okay, you have to carve out an hour out of your day, 6 hours out of your week, a special designated practice time. Again, you don't want more stress when you're already stressed out speaking. So the framework, it's 4 minutes, and it could actually go down to a minute's time once you start really adapting to it. But when you go to the gym, Steve, and you're lifting weights, you can look around the room and look at somebody across the room doing a different machine that you're not familiar with, or you have never seen them do that particular workout before, and go up to that person, and here's the practice. Just ask them a question. Tell me, have you been doing that move for long? I've never seen it.
Yeah.
People love to communicate and share their information and stories, and when you acknowledge them, there's a good feeling. The good hormones kick in. Somebody noticed me. It's like a little accolade or a little gold star. And that's using the framework. Just what do I want to ask that person? What's my big idea? I want to know how to use that machine. You walk right over. Now that's using the framework in your daily life. Same thing before you get into a meeting with your colleagues, okay? What do I want them to know for this meeting? What's my big idea? You establish that, go through the drill in less than 4 minutes. When you get to that meeting, you at least know what it is you want everybody to know about that particular message you have to deliver. This is using the framework or practicing with your already busy schedule, doing things you're already doing. It's not a separate thing. And that's another brilliant, beautiful thing about the timed sprints of the framework that works so beautifully, which is something that I was inspired by the book Sprint, which many people use to fast track prototyping. So I applied it to speaking, and it really is what changes everything. Great news. The conversation continues. When you subscribe, like, and ring the bell, you'll know when a new episode has released.